Our reading today is taken from Matthew chapter 10, verses 24 to 39. A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher and the servant like his master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household? So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. What I tell you in the dark, utter in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim upon the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, and not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's will? But even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I also will acknowledge before my Father who's in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I have not come to bring peace but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's foes will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. Amen. This weekend is the 591st anniversary of the founding of Corstorphine Old Parish Church. It wasn't known as the Old Parish then, it was just the church. Founded by the foresters of Corstorphine Castle and serving the farming village of Corstorphine, which lay at the fertile centre of several lochs in the area well outside the city of Edinburgh, of which we're now a part. 591 years, we'd better get the committee together to start planning the 600th birthday celebrations. It's a daunting privilege to be the minister of such an old church and to see my name as the most recent of a list of ministers who have led worship and served the parish over all those years. In the vestry and on the website, there is a register of all the ministers from the Reformation onwards, with a few words beside each name about who they were and what they did during their time as ministers here. There are some venerable names who went on to great things, and a few stories of those who struggled or stayed only a short time. In the biography of one of my predecessors, it says, "He wasn't much liked in the parish," a damning phrase that no one would rejoice in. There are stories too of the Reformation, of huge upheavals and arguments about prayer books and church government at both national and local levels, as well as stories from their time, history at a micro level, invasions by Cromwell's troops, witch trials, changes to the church buildings. And there are unspoken events behind each minister's name, world wars and plagues and social change. For lots of different reasons, the church has been the centre of village life for a long time. A place of safety and gathering, a place of learning and teaching, a place to make friends and meet them and to make decisions, to put up with long sermons and shuffle about on uncomfortable seats, to celebrate new life and marriage ceremonies, and to say farewell to loved ones. It's a source of real sorrow that current conditions mean that when people might want to gather at the church to meet and discuss and find reassurance and support, we've had to shut our doors for possibly the first time in our long history. For all the ministers whose photos on the vestry wall stare down at me every Sunday when the church is open, for all they look stern and uncompromising, I know it's just how people posed for photographs then. And behind those slightly worrying male faces, and they are all men up until now, which is another pressure, believe me, They face the same challenges and the same concerns, the same compromises and the same worries, the same frustrations and the same joys that being the minister of the old parish brings me today. Over the 591 years of being the church at the heart of the village, I suspect that clothes and accents and jobs and status have changed, but people and their concerns haven't. I suspect that some of the people whose names appear in the history of the village, people like Janet Beck and John Ford, Charles Drummond, and members of the Whiteman family, to name a few, I suspect that all of them would have struggled with the same emotions that we struggle with, that they had the same doubts, that they shared the same joys despite them living in a rural village, or shepherding sheep for a living, or facing famine and threat of plague, or taking in sewing to fund a passage to Africa to serve with David Livingstone. I suspect that the snotty-nosed, ragged-trousered wee boys in the old postcards of Man's Road, and the lines of well-dressed and very serious children in the school photos from the early 1900s would have fallen out with each other and been delighted to make up again. They would have struggled with maths and groaned over spelling, and been delighted when the bell rang at the end of the school day to signal the end of lessons. I suspect that worries about money and putting food on the table and the politics of family life and of who said what to who won't have changed much from the time when the church was founded until now, 591 years later. And all that time, year in, year out, week after week, the words of the Bible would have been heard and wrestled with, sometimes bringing comfort, other times bringing challenge. But I hope always, always speaking of a loving, compassionate God, who no matter what the community faced or individuals struggled with, or perhaps because of what the community faced and individuals struggled with, told them that they were known and loved and valued. "Are 2 sparrows not sold for a penny?" wrote Matthew, "and not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's will. But even the hairs on your head are numbered. Fear not, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows." It doesn't seem much to be compared to sparrows, ordinary everyday birds seen in abundance in our community and beyond, and yet that's where our value lies. We are ordinary and everyday, getting about our business, and that business is valued and noticed and blessed by both God and our neighbours. Happy 591st birthday. To the ministers and priests, to the elders and the beadles, to the publicans and the teachers and the shepherds of our village, to the snotty-nosed boys and the ringleted girls, to today's harassed commuters, shopkeepers, librarians, hairdressers, when they open, the sparrows getting about their business, known and loved by God. Let us pray. Loving God, to the least you bring love and welcome. To the upstarts you bring reality. To those in between you offer blessing and companionship and joy. Help us to know that our work is blessed and noticed, so that menial and everyday tasks are celebrated and enjoyed, that we value neighbourliness and sharing, forgiveness and helping, and that we celebrate that these gifts are within our hands. Bless the people of our community and parish, those who believe and those who are unsure, that through our words and actions, our kindnesses and care, your love may be known and accepted and enjoyed, today and all days, in Jesus' company and in his footsteps. Amen.